It is my great pleasure now to introduce you to our guest speaker this morning, Eitan Sharir. He's known to a number of you, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about him. He is a corporate culture consultant. He's a leadership coach and founder of Dynamic Achievement Group. He's helped some of the world's leading organizations connect their teams and lead them to success in the areas of corporate culture, leadership development, sales, and team building. And we're so fortunate to have him here with us today. Well, we actually have him here a lot because he comes to all our services with his wife, Megan, and his children. Eitan won't tell you this, but he also has a book, and it's in our library. I encourage you to take it out. It's called Activate Your Power. So here's Eitan to talk about our relationship to time.
I'm hoping that my voice will project. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes?
But the people with hearing aids need,
Well, still?
they won't hear you because it's on a loop system.
Yeah. Is this better? One, two, three, yes? Okay. So, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
What a wonderful welcome. So, when Stephen invited me to come and speak today, I struggled. Because my work as an organizational culture consultant is really focused on organizations, corporations, helping them become more productive and more effective and more successful. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my business really is about people. And that's my greatest fascination in life. People. Why do people do some things? Why do people believe certain things? And why are some people successful and others not? Why are some people happy and others not? Why are some people so worried about things and others less? And so my journey began about 20 years ago when I was 31 years old, living in Johannesburg, South Africa. I was managing a subsidiary of a group of companies, and life was good. And one Friday afternoon, I received a call from a friend of mine who told me that a common friend of ours, whose name was Peter, who was 42 years old at the time, lovely wife, 2 young kids, ultra-marathon runner, was diagnosed with an advanced cancer of the colon. So my mind went into shock, and a little switch went on. And that switch forced me to seriously look at my life. And the type of question that I asked myself at the time were, who am I? What is this life about? If I was Peter right now, and in all likelihood, my life is short, it won't last too long, how would I live? What would I do? Would I still keep on coming to the job that I'm doing? And at the end of that weekend, what became very clear to me was that as much as I was professionally committed, I wasn't passionate. I wasn't waking up in the morning, every morning, jumping out of bed to go and add value and create something. But I was professionally committed and I did what I was supposed to do to the best of my ability. So, on Monday morning, I had a meeting with the chairman of the group, met with him every Monday morning. I told him about my friend Peter. I told him that I had just received the biggest wake-up call of my life. That I was confronted with life and with my own mortality in the most serious way that I ever had until then. And that I have to go and fulfill this calling. And I resigned. I had 3 months notice period, at which time I started to plan for starting my own business. And what I decided to do is to go and work with organizations, corporations, and help people become happier and more successful, whatever that meant. It sounded good at the time and I felt it. I don't think I quite understood it fully. And anyway, I launched my business, that was about 19 years ago in South Africa, and started working with people in organizations. So initially I started with training on leadership and customer service and team building. And what I realized quickly was that some people were using the tools and were achieving better results, and some people were not. And I couldn't understand it. So it forced me to start looking more deeply into this human psyche. Why is it that some people have been to the same program, same session, same lecture? Some of them take it and do something with it and achieve as a result of it, and others have been to the same thing, listened to the same story, got the same tools and don't. And their life continues to be more or less the same. So I started looking at some research, and I'm going to share some research with you. And one of the latest ones that came out of a global workforce study called the Towers-Perrin Global Workforce Study that was conducted between 2007 and 2008 amongst 90,000 employees worldwide in 18 different countries. In Canada it was 5,000 employees. And this is what they found. They found that only 20% of people who come to work are fully engaged. And what they meant by that was that fully engaged means that people come to work and they go above and beyond the call of duty. 42% of employees were enrolled. So they came to work, they did their thing, they were professionally committed like I was before, and that was it, but not going above and beyond. And 38% of people who come to work are disengaged and not that interested. They come to work because it's a job, because it gives them a roof over their head, and because they can survive as a result of it. But they don't really want to be there. And when I saw that, it astounded me. How can people come to work that they have chosen and not give everything? How is it possible? There must be something going on inside here. And that's when I started looking at more research about human behavior and the mind and happiness and success. I'd like to share it with you, just to give you some facts here, and then we'll get to the real meat of this talk. So, a study in 1997 called Positivity and Performance and Happiness and Intelligence found, and see if this can be relevant to us as a community, that 90% of your long-term happiness is predicted by the way your brain processes the world. Only 10% is predicted by your external world. Now, if we think about most people, what would most people say? That 90% of the external world determines what happens in their internal world, in their life, and how they feel. True? True or not? Just checking. The same study also found that only 25% of job successes are predicted by IQ. Thank goodness. 75% of job successes are predicted by optimism levels, our outlook, support, the way that we support one another, and our ability to see stressed situations that all of us have, it's part of our life situation, as challenges instead of as a threat. Another study found that your brain, our brain at positive, when we're thinking more positively, is 31% more productive than when it's neutral or stressed. Your brain at positive is 37% better at sales. Influencing others doesn't mean you have to sell something. And this I found extremely interesting. Doctors, for those of you who go to doctors, are 17% more accurate at coming up with correct diagnosis when their brain is at positive. Which means that if your doctor is grumpy and miserable, don't go to them. Because they may find things that do not exist, and they may need to operate on things that do not exist. So, based on all of this, one thing became very clear to me, and that is that our mindset, the way that we look at the world, our outlook, our viewpoint, has a huge impact on how we feel. How we feel impacts how we behave and act. And how we behave and act determines and impacts what we create in this life and what we achieve. So my next job was to find out more about this mindset and to study it. And that's when I went and studied neuro-linguistic programming, many other things that I still continue to study because I'm a student of life. It's a never-ending story. There's so much here that we don't know. But this whole concept of mindset was astounding. So I'm going to share with you two different perspectives that I found that are predominant and dominant perspectives that most people come from, the one or the other. Now, we have both of them. And one is not better than the other, one is not good or bad, the other one is not right or wrong. It's just perspectives, and I will share it with you. And I would suggest that in order to get the maximum value of what I'm going to say now, think about your life. Reflect. That's why we come here as a community. Meaning, depth. So think about your life. Think about people that are important to you and other people. As I go through this, and see if you can make sense of this, if this is real. So the first perspective that about 85 to 93% of people come from, or look at the world through, is what I call the horizontal perspective. And the horizontal perspective is one where the key purpose for people getting out of bed in the morning is to survive. So survival is at the core of most people's purpose and reason for being. And most of this is unconscious. People are not consciously aware of it. But that's what happens. And even people that live in this privileged society that we live in, if they're more horizontal in nature, they don't wake up in the morning worrying about their physical survival because we have transcended it in our privileged society. Survival for them is more coping. How will I cope better today? How will I cope today with the issues, with the adversity, the unknown, the uncertainty, the change, the risk? How will I cope with all of that today? Do I have the resources and the capacity to deal with it? And that, in and of itself, is still survival. The two key driving motivators for people who are more horizontal in their viewpoint are, number one, fear. Fear is a huge driving motivator for most people. Fear stops us from doing what we really want to do. And fear also gets us to do things that we don't want to do. And that's why fear is a big motivator. The second key driving motivator for people that are more horizontal is greed. So what we see is that people who are more horizontal are driven by fear and greed. And if you look at the media out there who understand that, those two triggers, what do they do the whole time? If you look at a lot of magazines, if you look at TV, what do they tell us? What do they tell us? They trigger these two fears and greed buttons, and what do people do? They are hypnotized by these two drivers. And it's amazing because when people are horizontal, they become very predictable. All you have to do is press those two buttons, and what are they going to do? Man, you saw that, yes? Another thing that we find, and see if you can relate to this, with people that are more horizontal, is that there's a sense that something is always missing in their life. And most people don't know what it is that is missing. And so they continue to seek for that thing that is missing. And what does the outside world tell us that is missing in our lives? Stuff! So most people have become stuffologists in our society, always wanting to consume more stuff in the hope that more stuff will give them more. What? Happiness, fulfillment, love, peace. And so they continue on this treadmill, chasing the stuff, the external stuff, to fill some of the gaps that are inside here, in the hope that it will fulfill them. And even if they do achieve that stuff, and they are happy for a day, a week, a month, it's only a matter of time before they wake up one day and they realize that something is still missing. And I too had this missing thing, and I couldn't understand it because I had everything, and yet inside I felt that something's missing. So I started looking a little bit more deeply inside myself and started reading a lot about it, and realized or came up with a conclusion that when we were very young, and this is just my theory around this, it doesn't mean that it's fact-based, it's my theory. I'm asking you to look into your reality and your experience to see if it fits for you. What I found was that when we were young, very gullible, open, receptive, maybe ignorant, something happened. Some event happened in our lives. Now what it was is not relevant for the story. But that thing that happened, maybe around the house, imprinted a very deep-seated, unconscious belief in us that most people have been carrying with them ever since and continue until their grave. And that thing that imprinted a very deep, deep part of our psyche, imprinted this amazing thing that we carry with us, is a belief that we have about ourselves, that society nurtures and reinforces. And that belief is that I am not good enough. And because of that feeling of inadequacy, many of our decisions, many of our behaviors, and many of our actions are driven by this amazing fear that most of us try to suppress because it's painful. When that event happened, it opened up an emotional wound. And that wound was painful. And we as humans do everything to avoid pain. We don't like pain. So when there's an experience of pain, even if it's only psychological or emotional pain, we seek relief from that by avoiding it, running away from it very often, rather than confronting it. So if on the one hand something is always missing, or we feel that something is missing, on the other hand, what we find is that people that are more horizontal are always waiting for something better. Always waiting for a better life. When it's Monday, they wait for Friday. Not you, other people that I work with out there. When it's Friday, they wait for Saturday, and then they wait for the new child, and then for the grandchild, and then for the holiday, and then for the renovation, and then for the new car, and then, I don't know if you've heard it, the new iPhone 5S is out. They're always waiting for the next thing, because there's a hope that if something is missing right now, it means that right now is not good enough, which is generally projected by my belief that I'm not good enough. So how can anything right now be good enough if I don't believe that I'm good enough? And so, many people continue their life on this road. What we also find with people that are more horizontal is that they constantly live in the past and the future. Attached to the past, the good old days, do you remember those good old days? Things were easier, simpler, or the miserable life that they've had. Or they are attached to the future by constantly hoping, things will be so much better in the future, on the one hand, or feeling fearful and apprehensive about this unknown world that we live in. And it doesn't matter which one it is, but they are constantly attached to the two. Very small part of their life is actually here. And so I can carry on talking to you for another 5 days about the horizontal perspective. Because as you can see, we're talking about life. There's a lot there. We don't have the luxury of time today, so I'm going to move on to the next perspective. But before I do, what I'd like you to do is to spend 30 seconds, a bit of reflection, on something in your life that you did or thought about in the last week or two that was more horizontal in nature. And you know it. I'm not going to ask you to share it, so relax. Just something that was horizontal in nature that you know is not in line with your highest part. For 30 seconds. Thank you. So before we move on to the next perspective, which is a vertical perspective, I'd like to read two things to you. It's by two Cohens. There's different people. One is by Leonard Cohen, just a small verse from one of his songs, and that talks about the horizontal. They don't call it horizontal, but they do. And the other one is by a spiritual teacher called Andrew Cohen, and it's called Time. So I'll start with the Andrew Cohen one. And as I read this, please reflect again on your life. If we don't go within, we go without. I think in order to grow, we need to first go in, and only then see how we can take it and express it outside. Most of us spend our entire lives trapped. Trapped and suffocating in a kind of limbo. Trapped because, without even knowing it, we are always waiting. And that waiting is an experience of almost unbroken tyranny. We are trapped by the movement of time because we live in a constant state of anticipation. Waiting. Endlessly waiting for the future to arrive. We live in this way because we believe that in the future our lives will somehow be better than they are right now. When our relationship to life is based upon waiting, it's not possible for us to know what it's like to be truly alive. Because no matter what we may experience in the present moment, we will continue to wait. We won't stop waiting even when we experience profound happiness, because without realizing it, we will already be anticipating its demise. And in the very same way, when we experience fear and insecurity, we will also be waiting. Waiting for that unpleasant experience to come to an end. You see, on the most fundamental level, we are always holding ourselves back. Because of this, we are unwilling to truly give, unable to trust, and rarely ready to wholeheartedly engage with life. Indeed, if we look deeply, all we will see is waiting. Waiting for things to change, waiting to let go. Waiting is the ever-ending meantime in which our entire lives unfold. But there is a way out. And that way out is an absolute relationship to time. An absolute relationship to time is one in which we have stopped waiting. The second one is from Leonard Cohen, from the song Waiting for the Miracle. He talks about the same thing, just in an eloquent way. Baby, 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 I've been waiting. Can't quite do it like him. I've been waiting night and day. I didn't see the time. I waited half my life away. There were lots of invitations. And I know you sent me some. But I was waiting for the miracle to come. So that was the horizontal perspective. The second perspective is what I call the vertical perspective. And when people view life from a more vertical perspective, their purpose in life is very different to the horizontal one of survival. Because the reason why they jump out of bed in the morning 7 days a week is because their purpose in life is to move forward. It's to create something new. The more vertical people are, the more they have the capacity to care for the whole. Because they are not so self-focused about their fears and insecurities, so they can give more of themselves. The more vertical people are, the more alive they feel. There's more energy that is not stuck with baggage and past and issues. The more vertical people are, the more authentic they are. Because what you see is what they get. They don't have to protect themselves. They're not self-conscious as much as horizontal people are, worrying about their survival. The more vertical people are, the simpler life seems to be. And it's not that outside there is simpler. It's just that their perspective allows them to see things in ways that are just interconnected, easier to make sense of. And I'd like to share with you the biggest secret of all secrets, which has been my biggest insight in this life so far. And that secret is that this is it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to life. And this is it. Now, if you went and spoke to a horizontal person and said, this is it, what you will see is them running on this treadmill, waiting for that next thing, looking at you and saying, what are you drinking? What are you talking about? This is it. This cannot be it. There must be more to life than this. It can't be so simple. There must be more. And they will continue to chase that thing that they think will bring them their happiness and joy and fulfillment. And yet, when people are more vertical,
they have awakened to the realization that this is it. All we have is now. And this is not New Age philosophical mumbo-jumbo. This is real. It's scientific. The only time that we can experience life fully is here, and here, and here. That's it. We can refer back to the past, but it's not real anymore. It's just memories. It's gone. And the future has not happened yet. It's not been created yet. So we can dream about it and have aspirations and have visions. Yes, important for direction. But it's still not there. It hasn't happened yet. And when people wake up to that realization, then they learn to give everything of themselves in this moment right now. Because it's the only way that we can experience everything of this life right now. The only way. And I'm not talking once again from theoretical or conceptual ideologies. This is a practical thing. That when you realize that, you give everything. So when you're here, you give everything to here. Why? Because that's all you've got. We don't know about tomorrow. My friend Peter died 7 months later. We don't know. Things happen. We hear it every Sunday when we come here. We read it, we hear it from friends, we read it in the papers, we listen to it on TV. Things happen beyond our control because we cannot control life. Control is an illusion. If you don't believe me, try to control anything and you'll see that eventually it slips through your fingers. We cannot control it. And the only reason why we want to control things is because we are so fearful. And so, the more vertical we are, the freer we are. We are free to be who we really are, in line with our highest potential. And it does not mean that life is perfect. It does not mean that life is easy, because life has its ups and downs, because that's life. In this body, life is a challenge. It's a challenge. It's not easy, but it's what we've got. And so, based on this, I often ask people that I work with in the corporations, because they're people, they have families, so they want to be happier and more fulfilled and more successful. And I ask them, so based on what you just heard, how many, if you had a choice, imagine you had a choice, how many people would like to be more, not perfect, but more vertical, wherever they're coming from? They may be more vertical already, but want to be even more vertical. Or they may be somewhat horizontal and want to be more vertical. So if I had to ask you the question, this is not a workshop, but if I had to ask you a question, how many people here would like to be more vertical in their lives, day-to-day lives? Put your hands up, if you would. More vertical. If you thank you. And normally I get most people put their hands up. For those that don't, it's like, oh, maybe diagonal, I don't know, I'm not sure. You know who's talking. The person who says diagonal is like, you know what, I want to be fearful and greedy and insecure, and because that really works for me, you know? Because what they don't understand, and then afterwards I have to explain it a little bit more because we go a little bit deeper into this, it's a 2-day workshop, is, you know, what they think is that if you're vertical, you're not going to have drive. And yet people that are more vertical are so much more driven than people that are horizontal, but their drive is for different reasons. It's to help, it's to give, it's to serve. It's very, very different from drive towards me. And so based on this, because most people say, yes, I want to be more vertical, I've come up with 7 steps that I'll just take you briefly through on how to be more vertical. The first step is to be clear and committed to your purpose. Is your purpose to jump out of bed and move forward and create something new? Or is your purpose just to survive? So be very clear on your purpose. The second step that I teach is to take responsibility. To stop playing like the victim. Life is not out to get you. Life is just life. Take responsibility. If it's to be, it's up to me. We've heard of this before. Get on with it. No one says it's easy, but get on with it. The third principle is choose the high road. Once you have become the chooser, you've taken responsibility for being the chooser in this life, then choose the high road, the vertical road. What is going to be the best for everyone concerned? The fourth one, which is a very, very tough one for our little ego mind that wants to control and manipulate the whole time, is to face everything. Face your fears. Face your insecurities. This is so tough. It's so uncomfortable. It's so difficult. But the only way that we can be free is to face our stuff. If we run away from it, it becomes becomes bigger. It's like the monster in the dark. The fifth step is to be authentic. Be real. Just be who you are. Some people are going to like it, and some people are not going to like it. And people will usually judge you and criticize you. Welcome to life, everyone. Big secret. Big secret. Most people don't care that much about you because they're too focused on their own little stuff. I know it's a horrible one. We don't like to acknowledge it, but it's true. If we really look, it's true. If we come to a community like this and people are more vertical, of course we are more caring community. Why? Because we're coming from the right space. But if we come in just for ourselves, or what can I get out of this, we don't have the capacity to give it, to be kind and to be caring. Even if we want to, intentionally, we don't do it because we don't have the capacity. The fifth step is to give 100% and receive 100%. And what I mean by giving 100% is if this is it, and life is now, then it makes logical sense to give everything that you can, right now. So with you right now, I'm giving you everything that I can. If I could, I'll give you more. But I don't know how to right now. So that's what I'm doing. And when you're at home, give 100%. And unfortunately, my wife is here, so she's going to have to remind me of this the whole time. And when you're at work, give 100%. And when you're with your family, give 100%. And when you come here on Sundays, give 100%. Don't come here for a show or for someone to entertain you. Come here to give 100%. That's how we create the most powerful community on earth. When we come here to give, not to take. The second part of the fifth step is to receive 100%. And what I mean by that is that because I work with so many people, I see that most people don't know how to receive. They know how to take, but they don't know how to receive. We are blessed with so many gifts every day. And this is what I suggest to people, and I'd like us to do it as well. It's part of our century meditation for the day. I suggest an exercise every single morning for 3 minutes. And that exercise, a very simple exercise, is to ask yourself a question. And then for 2 to 3 minutes, contemplate on it. And that question is, what am I grateful for in my life right now? And I'll tell you what comes up for me when I do that. And then we'll all launch into it together for 2 minutes or so, 3 minutes. When I ask myself that question every morning, what comes out is, I'm grateful that I have this extra day to live. I'm grateful that I can see, that I can smell, that I can talk, that I can walk, that I can touch, that I can taste. I'm grateful that I have the most magnificent wife who's my best friend and the greatest mother to my children. I'm grateful that I have 3 precious children. I'm grateful that I can be here and share some of my insights in life with you. And so I carry on for 2 to 3 minutes every morning. More or less the same stuff comes up. But it just centers me and makes me realize how thankful I am. I have so much more than I need. I have so much more than enough. And I don't allow my mind in that moment to think about my problems or issues or concerns or fears. Just how grateful I am. So for the next 2 minutes, let's do this exercise. If you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to keep them open, keep them open. Just, what am I grateful for? Now, before you start, you'll find that our mind is not being trained very well. So when you ask that question, you'll start going, okay, it's finished, it's already 11:33, and it shouldn't be finished by 11:30 already, and maybe the soup is getting cold, and your mind will do all these things. So if it does, okay, just don't start fighting with it. It doesn't work well. Just ask the question again, what am I grateful for in my life right now? Questions are very good at centering the mind. Okay, let's go. What am I grateful for in my life right now? For 2 minutes. You may want to close your eyes just so that you don't have visual distractions. So if you quickly scan your body, how do you feel? Without thinking about it, how do you feel? Relaxed. Relaxed. Peaceful. Isn't it amazing? Such a simple exercise to do every morning, just to center us and make us realize how thankful and grateful we are. The seventh step that I talk about is be here now. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Stop procrastinating. Life is not tomorrow, remember? There's only now. Do it now. Because there's only now. And when we learn to live here, really here, we find that our mind has a problem with bringing our baggage into the now. It's not good at it. And then we can be more free and just express ourselves with one another. We can trust each other. We can be here with one another and know that what we really want is to do good, and be with each other and help each other and support each other. So I'd like to end with a final little piece, Barry number 2. And before you start, Barry, about 30 years ago, there was a show, theatrical show, on the West End, in the West End in London. And it was called Time. It was written by Dave Clark, and as part of the show, there was a huge hologram that came onto the stage where Sir Laurence Olivier narrated this most beautiful piece. And I'd like you to listen to the words, okay, and reflect on what we talked about and how we can go out there and truly serve more and come back here and learn to be more. Thank you, Barry. Volume, Barry.
Stand before me on the sign of infinity, all you of the earth. With the granting of the law of provenation comes the application of change. I will give you the key. And with this knowledge, please realize, comes the responsibility of sharing it. I will show you the way. It's very simple. Throughout the universe, there is order in the movement of the planets, in nature, and in the functioning of the human mind. A mind that is in its natural state of order is in harmony with the universe, and such a mind is timeless. Your life is an expression of your mind. You are a creator of your own universe. For as a human being, you are free to will whatever state of being you desire through the use of your thoughts and words. There is great power there. Can be a blessing or a curse. It's entirely up to you. For the quality of your life is brought about by the quality of your thinking. Think about that. Thoughts produce actions. Look at what you are thinking. See the pettiness and the envy and the greed and the fear and all the other attitudes that cause you pain and discomfort. Realize that the one thing you have absolute control over is your attitude. See the effect that it has on those around you. For each life is linked to all life, and your words carry with them chain reactions, like a stone that is thrown into a pond. If your thinking is in order, your words will flow directly from the heart, creating ripples of love. If you truly want to change your world, my friends, you must change your thinking. Reason is your greatest tool. It creates an atmosphere of understanding which leads to caring, which is love. Choose your words with care. Go forth with love.
Thank you. Go well. Thank you.